Now this stage begins around the age of 2 or 3, and it lasts till about 6 years of age. Again, these timelines are approximate, depending on each child having their own timeline, each family having their own timeline of development. So don't take these years as a fix. These are just approximate. Now, this stage is the setting for one of Freud's greatest sexual conflicts and also one of his greatest theories that completely shook up Europe at that time, and even till today shake up the world. And there have been countless number of poems and stories and movies, books written on this. It's the Oedipus Complex. So what happens is now the child is becoming aware of the fact that I'm different from my counterpart peers. So I'm a girl or a boy, my genital area is different, and there is something in my body which is not like the others. And they kind of tend to become fixated or obsessed with their genital areas, even to the point of, comparing, like you're seeing in the picture, showing each other their genital area to compare how they're different. So this is very normal behavior. I have seen, just as a side note, a lot of parents struggling with this, because if any of you are parents, and a lot of parents have, because I work with children, have come to me and complained that my 4-year-old tends to be obsessed with the genitals and keeps touching them or showing them to people inappropriately in a party or something, or even talking about it. And it's all very normal behavior. So I see parents getting very distressed with this sort of behavior, unless it is something that is causing distress to the child, and you feel that the child is being manhandled, mishandled, or abused. I don't think it's a behavior that you need to be concerned about. If any of you are parents here or have had such experiences, it's very much related to the phallic stage. It's related to the energy being concentrated in the genital area. Now, the Oedipus complex, something that has fascinated psychologists, sociologists, anthropologists, everybody, time and again, is the Oedipus complex. And what is the Oedipus complex? So what happens is, now this is where Freud's, there's no clarity about where this complex comes from. Apparently, Freud was obsessed with his mother or his nanny, we don't know, but one of the two women has definitely played a significant role in Freud writing this theory. The theory goes that actually Freud was not in the Oedipus complex, the father figure that the child is jealous of. There is a theory that Freud wasn't really talking about his father when he meant that he was jealous of this male figure in his mother's life. It was actually his mother's lover. So apparently his mother had a lover because she was much younger than his father, and later on in life she had another partner, and Freud hated him, and that resulted in him writing about the Oedipus complex. And what happens is that in the Oedipus complex, now we're talking particularly about a male child. So a male child develops an intense obsession with his mother, or the opposite sex parent in this particular case. And the energy that is being diverted to the mother, that obsession which is being diverted to the mother, is very much coming from an obsession which is very much related to the child's own genitals. So it's the same energy. And he has a desire to possess his mother and eliminate his father from the equation, because he sees his father as competition. He sees his father as an obstruction between the love of him and his mother. So his desire is to remove his father from the equation. Those who've had male children, women especially, will be able to attest to this and say that they have gone through this point where they have seen their sons behaving very jealously towards the father. This is what Freud was talking about when he talked about the Oedipus complex. But then what happens is that now this need of the child, of the male child, to remove the father from the equation also results in a deep fear of the father, because he knows that the father is stronger than him. He knows that the father is a man. He knows that the father is much more physically, emotionally, mentally stronger, and that the mother actually wants the father in the equation because they love each other and they're a couple. So the child can't really do anything about it. Now, this results in a castration anxiety. So he feels that his father is going to cut off his penis and he's going to be castrated. And that basically suppresses the desire for the mother. That fear of the father, or the castration anxiety, eventually leads to the child repressing or suppressing that intense obsession and desire with his mother. Hence, we don't see men walking around with this obsession with their mothers. Otherwise, according to Freud, if we didn't have castration anxiety, we would see men who have an unresolved Oedipus complex walking around with intense obsessions with their mothers. But because the father is there to negate that situation, the child tends to repress the desire for the mother. So the compensation is to identify with the father, to become as much as possible like him, so that the mother loves the child because he sees that she loves his father. So the idea is to become as much as possible like the father, so that the mother also falls in love with him as a child, and simultaneously the child's desire is being repressed for the mother. Now, the Electra complex was never really explained by Freud. He never even mentioned the Electra complex in his original theory. What happened was that his colleague Carl Jung, much later came into the equation, was the first person to actually question him about how the Oedipus complex acts out in cases of women. So, female child, what would happen with her? So then Freud and Jung together kind of, added the Electra complex, which was different as it wasn't really the same way and a sexual obsession of a girl towards her father. It was more about the concept of penis envy, which is a conflict of the Electra complex. What this means is that female children have an urge to possess a penis, both sexually and physically, because she sees that the father who has a penis and who is a man has more power, more authority, more control in society, and she envies him. And she feels that because he has a penis. And actually, if you think about patriarchy, this is very accurate, because it is the biology of men that make them men, and hence make patriarchy possible. So it's kind of an envy for the male figure and the male genitals, and wanting to possess it for herself. um, Freud actually believed this was kind of like a woman's urge to have authority, because at that time, you have to understand, Europe, like I said, it was aristocratic. Women didn't really have authority, but we did see tendencies of women to be hysteric, and especially when it came to not having any control and having controlling men in their lives, they tended to have this, penis envy, which is what Freud thought. Now, the child, so to compensate with this, she starts to become like her mother. She starts to become similar to her mother, and she starts to begin the process of identification, because, she feels that the only way to resolve this conflict is to become as much as possible like her own kind, her own sex, which is basically her first role model in her own gender is her own mother. So the idea is to resolve the conflict of penis envy, let's identify with the next woman we know, which is the mother. Now, Freud implied that women always slightly remain fixated at this stage. It could have been his way to explain feminism, like I said, that envy of authority that men have. The character stuck at this stage, according to Freud, was narcissistic, vain, and proud. He has written a lot about narcissism. I won't go into that in detail, but narcissistic personality disorder is one of the most fascinating personality disorders. And according to Freud, narcissism originated at the phallic stage, so unresolved conflicts of the phallic stage. And he also believed that homosexuality was a fixation of the phallic stage. Now, this is interesting because if you think about it, the idea is to identify with the opposite, the same-sex parent. So the boy identifies with the father, and the girl identifies with the mother. But I think that what Freud implied was that if there is a problem or a dysfunction in that process of identification, that the child might actually identify with the other parent. So start to incorporate feminine aspects in a male child, or start to incorporate masculine aspects in a female child, and that could be the result. That could be the eventual, the result could be homosexuality. I think this is what he meant.